All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This is Wednesday. Oh, it's not Wednesday morning. I'm a day ahead of myself. It's Tuesday morning. Yesterday, I was supposed to have Frank Sundram call, and he just couldn't make it due to technical difficulties. And today, I think he made it with still technical difficulties. Good morning, Frank. How are we doing today, sir?
Oh, good morning. Mars is in retrograde. All my communication systems are going in reverse.
I don't know what to tell you. It sounds like some sort of science fiction movie if it's that bad.
Well, I am thinking that maybe abandoning smoke signals was a bad idea on our parts.
Well, smoke signals haven't worked in a long time. They didn't. Well, not around here they haven't. But one of the things I was curious about, you said you were going to Washington, D.C. today after the show? Is that what you said?
Yes, I am.
Well, what are you going up there? What are you traveling to Washington, D.C.? Is it for something that you're going to speak on or visit somebody up there?
Well, James, as you know, there's a lack of leadership in the country, and I think that you are our guy. So I'm going to go out there as the advanced team and lay it out for folks.
Frank, what do you, I want some of what you're smoking, okay? You got, hey, no, I am not the advanced guard. Well, neither are you either. But I know you stay very much. Well, you try to what's happening around America. You brought out some information that I had no idea the other day. That at one time people traveled the circuit, had groupies, and had people that bet on them, and they were like rock stars. But it's not for what you think. Something that's so I don't know, retro or so old-fashioned that you wouldn't think about it. Would you care to comment about that? What you sent me yesterday? I'm kind of going, I've never heard of that. And what?
Sure. You know, we've been talking about NASCAR.
Yeah.
How NASCAR is slowly going out of fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will remember wrestling being the hottest thing when television first came out.
Yeah, wrestling was real and Hollywood was fake. That's right. I remember that, yes.
And so here, just at the birth of the mass communications era from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and into the mid-50s, there was a competitive sport that drew hundreds of thousands of people to the competitions. And people were sponsored, people made money, they traveled all over the Midwest, and it was not uncommon to hold these competitions at airports and open fields where hundreds of thousands of people would come and camp out to watch the competition.
Wow.
And it wasn't the Olympics.
It wasn't the Olympics. Sure, it sure sounds like an Olympic event, what you sound like. Sound like it was attracting thousands and thousands of people, that or some sporting event like football or basketball or something, but it was none of those.
It was none of them. It was better than that.
Oh.
Okay, would you like to know what that sport was?
What was that sport for everyone out there? Because I'm curious myself.
It was corn shucking.
You shuck me. You're shucking me.
You're
corn shucking?
No, really. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. How many ears of corn could you shuck in an hour? And that would be in the heat, in the humidity, surrounded by crowds of cheering people. They would go at it toe to toe and shuck ears of corn and throw them into a cart. Okay, or actually a wagon. Some of them would do 500-600 of them every hour.
Wow!
And they had champions, and it was a whole industry and a major sport where people traveled from town to town following their heroes.
Wow, it sounds like they could do one ear about every 5 or 6 seconds at that rate.
Something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
For those people who are students of YouTube, you can go on there and look up corn shucking, and there are films up there about what happens. When I was in the Midwest, I had a couple of guys come to me, and they put together a film about the corn shucking craze. And I did not even know it existed at the time.
I had no idea either.
Competitive sport or an industry.
I had no idea. Now, I remember reading not long ago that at one time during that time, the number one dance craze going around America, I should say, was square dancing. I remember that. But some people, I don't know if that was part of the craze. I don't know if it went together with it, but I don't know. But we're talking about how Henry Ford promoted square dancing. He really wanted to have more people do square dancing, and some people say, well, that's racially, that left out the blacks, and it was segregating it that way. And I went, man, I don't know if that's what it was doing or not, but square dancing was quite popular. Matter of fact, I remember in school having to take square dancing classes. I don't know if you did or not, but I remember I had to. You're old enough to, they probably made you take things like that as well. I have no idea.
Mine was more classical. It was the waltz, it was the foxtrot, it was all that. So not that it was just a different world I grew up in than until I came over here.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Right.
So it's there are certain gaps in my education. But I want to warn all our viewers and listeners, the one thing you never want to do without great preparation is get involved in something called contra dancing.
Dancing?
Contra, C-O-N-T-R-A.
Oh, okay, like Iran-Contra, but it's contra dancing.
Yes.
Okay.
Contra dancing, all right? And it is about the most physical thing that one could possibly do, and you got to train like an athlete to do it.
It's so much work.
I tried it once in Santa Fe, and I almost passed out on the dance floor. I was just so knocked out.
Well, it sounds like a very physically, it does. But Frank, hang on to that thought right now. You and I are going to help answer Donald's, he's got a question about a 94 F-150, which is OBD1, believe it or not. That's right up your alley, old cars.
That's my alley.
Good morning.
Cars.
All right, good morning, Donald. What's your question about your F-150?
Okay, I just left Austin, Texas 3 weeks ago. I drove this truck. As always, I've kept it up in immaculate condition.
Yeah.
I come down to Chipley, got off at Walmart, got me some shaving cream, come back out. The starter went out.
The starter went out. Okay. All right.
I replaced the starter. Well, it's always had a problem for the last year of just spinning over and spinning over. It might take me several times for it to spin over, which required it, about 5 minutes before it would crank. After the first crank, it's fine the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it just kept on spinning over 3 weeks ago, and so I took it up to Marianne, and they've had it now 3 weeks, and now they think that it's the computer that needs to be replaced.
It's entirely possible, Frank. Donald, excuse me. I was talking. You just tell me you turn a key and it just turns over, and then maybe it'll start, maybe it won't start, right?
Yes, yes.
And yes, that computer can be it. The first thing I've had one describing exactly what you're talking about coming to my shop a few weeks ago, and he had computers changed, he had everything, and he still had the problem. What they didn't do and didn't check was the grounds and powers that go to the computer. They need to be tested with a headlight. Make sure the grounds and the power will light up a halogen headlight as a tester, because you may have grounds and you may have powers with your own meter, and your little bitty test light might light up, but you really need to make sure it can carry a load. That's the biggest thing I see on these older model Fords, that if it's not a fuel pump causing the problem and you got good fuel pressure and it just doesn't want to run or have spark or very weak spark or just doesn't, just erratic spark, a lot of times what I find is the grounds going to the computer are at fault, or the power, and it sometimes damages the computer. So if they do put a computer in there, make sure they check the grounds and powers with a headlight, not a test light. That makes sense. Really.
It runs like a scalded dog. I run 75 miles an hour from Texas.
Well, when it runs, but right now it's not running. Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
Right.
Well, if it's not running, that's you got it at a shop up there. Let them check it out and take care of it. Sounds like they're going on it, but engines are the same. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. 4-cycle engine. You got to have intake, compression, power, exhaust. And what you're not getting, I bet, is either I believe you're not getting spark. Is that what you're not getting, is spark, or you're not getting fuel injection?
Well, it seems like it gets plenty of fuel, but no spark. It just ain't catching.
Well, that's the thing, what you're talking about. I had a 94 do the same thing. The customer changed everything on it, and he had about $1,000 to $1,200 just in parts he's put on it. And he brought it to me, and I looked at it and said, sir, all those parts you put on there, well, they're all good except for that new computer you put in there. It's damaged now because you didn't have grounds and power. So, biggest thing I can tell anybody on an older model truck or a newer model truck, before you change any computer, make sure it's got grounds and power that will light up a headlight that pulls about 8 amps. If it won't light up a headlight, you need to figure out why, because that Ford only has one main ground from the battery to supply everything, and that's a big killer. It really is. That what comes right off the battery is a main ground, and that supplies grounds to everything. That one wire. All right. Hope that helps you out, Donald.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Give me a call back and let me know what you find. All right.
Sure will.
All right. All right, Frank. Did you know that about Fords? I don't know if you knew that about Fords or not. They only had one ground back then to make everything work.
Well, I own British cars.
Ah, that's true. You do.
The one thing with British cars, you always went to the grounds first because it was all about the grounds. So it became a religious practice to me every year to start at the back and work your way forward, replacing, just cleaning every ground cable and replacing the bolt that went into the metal.
And it's so true. You know, we see that, and that's the older model cars we're talking about, but grounds have always been a problem. Matter of fact, you said British cars. Years ago, my first British car had a positive ground on it. I'd never seen anything like that. And I go, a positive ground? How can you have a positive ground? Well, it's just reverse of what you think it should be. But it's kind of neat. Didn't your MGs have positive grounds as well?
Yes, they did. Now here's the science. Okay,
right.
The science is that volts flow from negative to positive.
Correct.
Okay, so theoretically, you get a better flow of electricity.
Okay. I was just wondering how the theory was on that. You know, but that's but a lot of people don't realize it goes from negative to positive. Everybody thinks it goes from positive to negative, and it doesn't. I guess that's what you're.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
physics.
Yeah, that is. That's pretty amazing how it works. But they don't do that anymore. They got away from that. I mean, everything now is a negative earth ground, but positive grounds were quite common in the 50s and 60s, if I'm not mistaken, on European cars, but not here in America.
The British stayed with it the longest until pretty much their industry went under. And it was roughly about the time when alternators came out that they reversed it and went to positive ground, went to negative ground and all that. But then the other part was also that trying to get radios in there, you had to isolate the radio physically so that nothing would touch. And of course, in something that moved around, it eventually touched and shorted out. And so it was pretty common for people to switch the cables because that meant you had to repolarize both the voltage regulator and the generator.
Wow, I forgot all about that.
And do that, yeah.
I forgot all about polarization. Yeah, I had to initialize them. I forgot about that. Yep.
Hey, take a hot cable and smack the positive thing a few times.
Yeah, and well, that's what things have changed. Back when you and I first went into this industry, a lot of it had to do with actual mechanical, touching things and making things happen. We actually had to touch things to make things happen. Today's cars, a lot of it, if you touch things, things are going to go south. The smoke's going to get out of the box. We can't do those things that we used to be able to do. We can't use test lights like we used to be able to do. We have very low resistance. We can use a headlight to make sure we got, to take the place of something that carries a load, but that's about it. Things have gotten a lot more complicated and a lot more sensitive. You just can't smack a positive cable on something and have sparks fly and expect it to work on today's car. You can't do it. Things will go south real quick.
Yeah, well, also the difference is so much is no longer 12 volts. It's microvolts and millivolts.
Oh, absolutely.
And you put 12 volts to it and you fry something.
Well, today's cars operate just like a computer. They have 5-volt reference, from all the inputs, and 5-volt or 8-volt, depending if it's a Chrysler. But yeah, they dropped the voltage down from 12 down to 5 in most cases, and that's how things are working. And you're absolutely right. It's a lot more sensitive, and it takes almost 2 years of college electronics to be able to work on today's cars. Where when we first got into this industry, if you had a test light and an ohm meter, that was it. That's all you really needed. And things have changed quite a bit. They really have. Yeah. And we're up against the clock, Frank. We've been on here for 14 minutes and 30 seconds. I got to go. But I want you to call again whenever you get back up in Washington. If you want to call tomorrow or the next day, just give us a call. I don't have anyone scheduled for tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. I got someone at 6:15. Right. But if you want to, give us a call and tell us about your trip to Washington, okay?
All right. James Morris for president.
Oh.
2020.
Oh, boy. I'm not fighting Donald Trump. All right. Talk to you later now. Bye-bye. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call a hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
All right, welcome back. We just got off the phone with Frank Sundram. You know, I have no idea what he's going to Washington for. I know it's not not to run me for president. He's threatening to do that. I keep telling him, no, I'm not running for president in any way whatsoever. Maybe running for the border. But anyway, we're talking about, before he left, about how computers work, and they don't use that much voltage. Think about this. You've got 12 volts in your battery, and that 12 volts to your battery, it goes to, say you got power and grounds, which we were talking about in the other gentleman, his 94 model truck, and that 12 volts gets cut down to 5 volts. That 5 volts is what sends power to the throttle positioning sensor, to the, not the idle air control, all the input sensors, intake air temperature sensor, whatever the engine coolant temperature sensor is, throttle positioning sensor, speed sensor, all these inputs coming into the computer to tell the car's computer how fast it's going, or how much load's on the engine, or how much gas it's been using, or how rich it's running, or how lean it's running. And that's its job. That's the voltage, because it's a lot easier to control 5 volts stability wise than it is to control 12 volts, because remember, you got 12 volts on a battery charger, on an alternator that's varying between 13.8 to 14.2. That's what it is. So that's what your battery voltage is varying while you're driving down the road, 13.8 to 14.2. But in order to have a consistent voltage, they needed to drop the voltage lower, just like your home computer. So you're working with 5 volts. They can keep 5 volts very, very stable. No problem whatsoever. They know that 1 volt is idle and 4.5 volts is wide open throttle. Okay, that's just an example of how a throttle positioning sensor would tell the computer how fast you're going. Like on your, say we're talking about an oxygen sensor. You're talking about millivolts. We're dealing with an oxygen sensor that deals with less than 1 volt. And if it's off as much as 0.3 of a volt, the car is going to use more fuel than it should use. You go, huh? 0.3 of a volt? That's right. Remember, your oxygen sensor is supposed to bounce between 0.2 to 0.9 millivolts. That's less than 1 volt. 0.2 to 0.9, less than 1 volt. Just say it goes to the dark side. Your oxygen sensor gets lazy. It doesn't want to work real well. Instead, it goes from 0 to 0.7. That's as high as it goes. When it goes into closed loop, it does that, but it really tries to drop below that 0 line, and it can't do it. And so there's a gap, kind of goes, what the heck's going on? Next thing it knows, it starts to come back up, and it's reading 0.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then starts going back down again. Now it's running rich, lean, but it's shifted to the lean side. Instead of 0.2 to 0.9, it's 0.7 to 0 or lower is what it's reading. And so it's kind of going, what? So that may explain why your car kind of at idle does weird things. Could be an oxygen sensor. Not saying it is. It can cause misfires. You can have an oxygen sensor that's saying it's reading 0 volts, and the computer goes, wow, I'm running really, really lean. Dump fuel in there. And dump so much fuel in there, the car starts to stumble and miss. That could happen. Or it could be, or now the oxygen sensors normally fail in the lean position. They don't normally fail in the rich position. They can, but normally if they fail in the rich position, it's because someone has allowed something to be ingested into the engine that shouldn't have been ingested, like silicon, something that will contaminate the oxygen sensor and make it think that it's got a rich mixture all the time. We see that not often, but we do see it, especially after someone has an engine detailed and they've taken it to a car wash or whatever, or they just bought a brand new used car, and the engine and the body is perfect, and you open the hood, it's shiny, makes, just glows, it's so bright. Well, they put all that shine on there, and it got ingested into the air. That silicon got ingested into the air filter, got through the air filter, got into the engine, and it contaminated the oxygen sensor. And how you'll see that is you'll get a code in there saying oxygen sensor stuck rich. People go, what? That don't happen. And then when you put it on the scanner and look at it, it's stuck at 0.9. No, Matt, when you just turn the car off and then turn the key on, the car doesn't even have to be running. And all of a sudden it starts climbing. As soon as you turn the key on, it starts going 0.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it stays there. Maybe even 1 volt just stays there. And you're going, how can that be? You unplug it and it goes to bias volt, half a volt. Okay, that's normal. Plug it back in, bloop, back up. The car is not even running. Very rarely does that happen, but it does happen. And when that happens, it makes things act really weird. Remember the number one job of a car's computer. What is it? The number one job. What is a car's computer supposed to do? So I've had people say better gas mileage. Yes, that does give you better gas mileage having a computer on there. Keeping fuel control. Yes, it does. But the number one job is to save the catalytic converter. That's its job, because that catalytic converter, along with that computer, are covered for an 8-year, 80,000-mile federally mandated warranty from the manufacturer. Yes, your car may have a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty. Okay, that may be all you think you got. But if you got 79,999 miles on the car and your computer fails, tow that car to the dealership and have them check it out and have them replace the computer. Same thing goes with your catalytic converter. If your catalytic converter's got a PO420 and you got 79,999 miles, do not drive that car to the car. Do not drive it, tow it. Have them look at it and ascertain the catalytic converter is faulty. It's under warranty for 8 years, 80,000 miles. Honest to goodness. That's one of the reasons the number one job of the car's computer is to save the catalytic converter. That's what it's supposed to do. Computers do fail. I replace them all the time. I replaced one yesterday. But something makes computers fail. We had a car come in. It's an older model car, 2003 Ford Town & Country. Comes in, and it came from another shop, and they said, we don't do computer work, we think we got a bad computer. I go look at it and said, well, yeah, I see you got a stuck open injector driver, see that, but you've also got internal ECU failure codes in here. When you see that, all bets are off. That computer's gone to be with Jesus, and you're not going to resurrect that one unless you send it off and have them rebuild it. I can't do it. No one else can do it. So we tell the customers, look, we have a problem. We know we have a stuck open injector. We know we have a bad computer. Our money is on the stuck open injectors because what we've seen on these Chrysler Town & Countries, the exhaust pipe that goes from the one bank to the other bank gets so hot it melts the wires that feeds feeds grounds to the injector. Remember, injectors have power all the time with the key on. They got 12 volts constantly. But when you turn that key on, they got 12 volts. Every injector has 12 volts, and when it cranks it, you're giving it a ground signal. You're giving it a ground to allow the injectors to complete the circuit, to close, to allow fuel to be injected into the engine. That's how it works. What ends up happening is when you turn the key on, you've got the hot wire that's already there. The ground wire is grounding it, so the injectors are stuck open, so it just pours gas down that cylinder. Pours gas in the engine, and in some cases ruins engines because people ignored that misfire for so long. Not only did it take out the catalytic converter, it took out the engine because it washed the cylinder walls and filled the oil crankcase up with gasoline. Yeah, you can run on gasoline and oil, not very long before something's going to hit, because you lose the ability to lubricate things inside there. You lose that ability to keep things protected from touching metal to metal. That's what oil does. Oil actually keeps them from touching metal to metal by a thin film of oil, the molecules it rides on. Well, you wash those molecules out of there, and you got contact metal to metal, and it doesn't take long to throw a rod, gall a cylinder wall. It doesn't take long. So when you get that check engine light, don't ignore it. I have so many people that ignore that check. I have them come in all the time with check engine light. Black tape over them. Had one come in yesterday. I told the customer, I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. The code you got on here is the PO456. I said, the only two things that would cause this PO456 that I know of, there's three things. One is if you got a teeny tiny itty bitty leak, in a hose. And I said, we can physically inspect the hoses from here to here. If we don't see a leak, hose crack, that's probably not the problem. The only two things left to cause this is the natural leak vapor detection pump or the gas cap. Those are the only two things that will cause this code. It's an hour and a half diagnostic to figure out what's going on with this. I would, in my opinion, it's up to you, sir. I know it's going to be one or both of these things. Why don't you just go ahead and allow us to change those parts, and that should take care of the problem. Or you can pay me to diagnose it, because maybe there is something wrong with it. Maybe it's something else, but from my experience, when you pass all the evap codes on it, except for the teeny tiny one, the small leak, which is less than 20 thousandths of an inch, it's normally a gas cap or your natural leak vapor detection pump on a Chrysler product. Very, very common problems out there. But they affect your gas mileage. And people come in all the time with black tape over them. All the time. I just put black tape over. My mechanic says it doesn't mean anything. I said, well, your mechanic is mistaken. I'm sure he's a very good person, and I'm sure he means well. But when that light comes on, that means you're exceeding federal emission guidelines by a minimum of 10%. Now, you say, what's that mean? I'm polluting the air? Well, yeah, you're polluting the air. But at the same time, you're letting your gas vapors come out of your tank and leave. And so usually your gas mileage drops by at least 10%, because that was one of the customers' complaints. I love my truck, but my gas mileage sucks. I said, I understand. It sucks because you're letting most of it escape into the atmosphere because of a bad gas cap or a bad natural leak vapor detection pump, where it will not pull that positive pressure that's being produced by the gasoline. If you pull your gas cap off and you hear pressure on it and you've got anything built from 95 up, you got a problem. I'm going to tell you that right now. You should not have any pressure built up on your gas tank when you take that cap off. Years ago, that was common. If you took it off and you didn't hear that, you'd think something was wrong with it. Now, if you hear that, I know there's something wrong with it, because you're not going to have also a hard time putting fuel in it. It wants to kick back on you when you put fuel in it. It doesn't want to take fuel normally. You have to put it in very, very slowly. That usually means you've got a problem with your vent solenoid, or you got a problem with your purge solenoid, or both. Or you've got a problem with a rollover valve, which could happen. I have seen rollover valves go bad. That's the part that keeps, when a car flips upside down, which you don't want to happen, keeps gasoline from pouring out of the tank. That's what a rollover valve does. Sometimes they get bad and get stuck. And they do. They get stuck and they don't work right. They're not doing their job, and they can cause gas vapors to leak, or they can cause just a myriad of problems. They're just kind of like, golly, why do they make it that way? I think sometimes they do that just to give technicians a hard time, engineers out there. But we will overcome, and we will compensate, and we will fix them out there. So if you got a car question, it's going to have to wait till tomorrow morning. Give us a call, 850-763-0555, Monday through Friday, right here on Fox 28 WPGX. Fox 28. We'll be back tomorrow morning at